Hello, everybody. I'm Charlotte Oates. I am the Deputy Chair of the RSA, and it is my great pleasure to welcome you all to the Great Room for this evening's very special event. A brief reminder that we are filming and live streaming this event, so a warm welcome to all of our online viewers who are joining us from around the world. Tonight's gathering is a celebration of the transformative impact of design and the influential practitioners who are leaders in this field. It's an important time to celebrate design and the ways in which it can help people, places, and the planet to flourish in harmony. To achieve a vision of a more regenerative and equitable world, we need design solutions to help us create better futures for everyone, everywhere. And that's why the RSA has long recognized the importance of supporting and celebrating truly exceptional national and international design leadership and innovation. The titles of Royal Designers for Industry are awarded annually across disciplines to those who have achieved sustained excellence in design of significant benefit to society and ecology. Established in 1936, the title remains the highest accolade for designers in the UK. And this year we are delighted to recognise 3 new Royal Designers for Industry and 4 new Honorary Royal Designers for Industry. I'm delighted that alongside our Royal Designers, we are joined by many existing members in the room this evening. We look forward to ongoing collaboration with the faculty across the RSA's programme of interventions and with our community of designers across the RSA Fellowship in the year ahead, all in support of our mission of deploying design to transform institutions, services, and systems to regenerate our global society. As we gather for our annual celebration together, I want to take a moment to reflect on what's been an exciting past year for design at the RSA. We continue to take a design-led approach to the RSA's impact programme, Design for Life, putting life-centric design at the heart of all our interventions. One of the most significant developments of the year has been the opening of a new chapter for the RSA Design Awards. And in July, we celebrated 100 years of the Student Design Awards. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank our partners on the Student Design Awards, Arup, Skin Health Alliance, Boyd & Coyne, Google DeepMind, Royal Botanic Gardens at Kew, the Marketing Trust, NatureCare, and the RAIN Foundation. These partnerships helped us to work with colleges and universities across the UK and around the world to embed 6 design briefs in their curricula. Many students who have passed through these programs have gone on to use their skills to transform the world we live in, and indeed some have had the honour of becoming a Royal Designer for Industry themselves. Tonight, I'm really pleased to acknowledge 2 winners from the Centenary Student Design Awards and to share their winning work with you. First up, we have Dougal Cusack-Brown, who won a 2024 Student Design Award for the Flourishing Places brief. This brief, in partnership with Arup, asked the question, how might we collectively reimagine a regenerative future of the built environment to enable all life to flourish. Dougal's submission, the Chatham Muscle Project, From Dockyards to Dining Tables, is a community-driven mussel farm in the Garden of England, intertwining local farms and promoting a sustainable food ethos. Judges were impressed by Dougal's professional presentation at the interview stage of judging, as well as creative innovation and unique concept in this proposal. They enjoyed hearing from Dougal about the many social benefits of his proposal and the forward-thinking approach he clearly demonstrated. Our second winner is Richard Alexander, who is here to represent his team, PIRE, the winners of the Made Natural brief. This brief, in partnership with Royal Botanic Gardens Kew, with support from Nature Care, asked the question, how might we create sustainable, nature-based solutions which use trees to protect the environment and strengthen communities? Inspired by heat-reactive pine cones, PIRE is a low-cost and zero-maintenance early wildfire detection system made from nature-based materials. Judges praised this group's professional presentation, carefully considered approach, and great answers to questions at the interview stage of the judging process. Richard and his colleagues demonstrated strong teamwork and, in their presentation, even preempted questions and unknowns from judges. Judges praised the PIRE concept and great application of design skills to solve an increasingly urgent real-world challenge. Both Dougal and Richard are with us this evening, and I'd like them to be upstanding. Please join me in congratulating them. These talented young designers will be showcasing their winning projects in the Benjamin Franklin Room after this event, and I'd encourage everyone to speak with them about their work and what they gained from taking part in the Student Design Awards. At the same time as celebrating this incredible program of work, we also opened a new chapter by introducing RSA Spark, the culmination and transformation of a century of Student Design Awards, 10 years of the Pupil Design Awards, and 15 years of our Catalyst Entrepreneur Grants. RSA Spark evolves these programs to create a new 21st century offer for learners and entrepreneurs. We're incredibly excited about the potential for RSA Spark to ignite ideas into action, generating positive impact on the world. Participants will find their creative agency, grow capabilities, and develop lifelong collections through tackling real-world mission briefs set by industry partners. Our founding mission sponsors include Network Rail, RMIT Europe, Rain Trust, and the Marketing Trust, with additional support from J.J. Sainsbury Foundation and Camino. A huge thank you to those partners who are helping us reimagine our offer to make an even greater impact in the next 100 years. Currently, RSA Spark is being tested with a small cohort of participants, but do keep your eyes peeled for the official launch in 2025. From the next 100 years to tonight, following the diploma presentations this evening, we will have the annual RDI Address, delivered this year by Tom Stuart-Smith. To make the presentations and take you through the proceedings from here it is my great pleasure to welcome the current RDI Master, Charlie Payton, who has been a tremendous support to the faculty and to the RSA over the past year. On behalf of the RSA trustees, staff and the fellowship, I would like to gratefully acknowledge the important role of the RDI Master and to thank all the Royal Designers for their ongoing commitment to the RSA. I'll now hand over to Charlie. Do you please join me in welcoming him?
Gosh. Goodness. Made me feel quite emotional now. Good evening. Thank you, Charlotte, and good evening, everyone, and welcome. I've been half listening to Radio 4 this week, and I kept hearing a clip which said, always make sure you're the dumbest person in the room. It proves you're in the right room. So, it is my privilege and pleasure to be here with you all in this, the right room, for our annual celebration to welcome new Royal Designers and Honorary Royal Designers for industry into the faculty. As is our custom, I'd like to start by taking a few moments to say goodbye to fellow Royal Designers who we've lost in the last 12 months. Please honour them, their amazing work and their contribution to design. Only a few months ago, Sir Kenneth Grange, CBE, RDI, asked me for a list of RDIs still breathing. He wanted to invite them to the launch of his book, which was on the 21st of March at Margaret Howell's shop. He was chirpy, mischievous, generous, and entertaining as ever. Exactly 4 months later, on the 21st of July, he joined the RDI's Not Breathing Club. It was 4 days after his 95th birthday. Being a conscientious designer and a skilled craftsman, Ken designed and made his own coffin many years before he needed it. He was motivated by the quandary he found himself in when his mother died. I think it was following my favourite maxim for designers and makers, it's better to be looking at it than looking for it. He was diagnosed with the big C, as he called it, over a decade ago, but he carried on life to the full. His mission for improvement touched everything, from coffins to cameras, trains to taxis, fountain pens to razors. Talking of his Wilkinson sword razor, he once told me, anyone can design a razor. The real heroes are the people who make them. His Intercity 125 was hailed as saving British Railways, and it was fondly referred to as the journey shrinker. We miss him, but I, for one, will be forever grateful for having known him. Derek Burzel had a passion for typography from an early age and won a scholarship to Central School of Art and Craft, as it was called then. He went on to become a pioneer of modernist British graphic design. Among his many projects, he designed this delightful collection of Royal Mail stamps to celebrate the 250th anniversary of the RSA in 2004, as well as the very first calendar for Pirelli. Derek's passion lies in the details, the typeface, and with books themselves, the feel of the paper, the quality of the binding, the cut of the font, and the balance of image to space. These are the things that elevate Derek's work to the rank of a titan of a typography. At a Buckingham Palace reception in 2005 to be awarded the Prince Philip Designers Prize, he rebuked a design council official who had informed Queen Elizabeth of the fiscal value of the design industry. Your Majesty, design is not an industry, it is a craft. He wasn't beheaded. In 2000, he redesigned his Book of Common Prayer, which I would say is the most elegant work of typography I've ever seen. He said he was inspired by the colour of the napkins in his local Turkish restaurant for the colour of the end papers. His book, Notes on Book Design, in 2004, detailed his half-century of experience. It spells out almost everything he had to teach and illustrates his vast range as a book designer. Eileen Diss, the celebrated British TV, film and theatre designer. Her career spanned 6 decades, starting in the 90s at the BBC, where she was the very first female designer. In Dublin at the Gate Theatre in the 90s, she became known for beautiful, elegant period settings for plays by Brian Friel, Oscar Wilde, Noel Coward, and Anton Chekhov. She was also the favourite designer of Harold Pinter, and she designed many of his plays and productions in London and Dublin. Her work had an elegance and a panache, and she was awarded 6 BAFTAs for film costume design. I was talking about her just a week ago with a chum of mine, Peter Straker, who knew her well and loved her to bits. He said, "She always made me look good and feel elegant." So, onwards to welcome our new designers for industry, all looking good and elegant. As Charlotte mentioned, the title Royal Designer for Industry is awarded annually by the RSA to designers of all disciplines who have demonstrated sustained design excellence, work of aesthetic value, and a significant benefit to society. I will read out a brief citation and then invite you onto the stage to collect your award. Shona Heath is a London-based production designer and art director, celebrated for her surreal and whimsical set designs. Her work appears in leading fashion publications like Vogue and W magazine. Shona's film credits include Poor Things, earning her an Academy Award and a BAFTA for Best Production Design. It's a truly astonishing film, and I urge you to see it if you haven't already. I've seen it twice, and I need to see it twice more just to take in all the amazing details. She also designs branding campaigns, packaging, and window displays, blending fantastical and contemporary aesthetics to redefine visual storytelling, mixing contemporary and vintage elements with timeless sensibility. Shona, many congratulations and welcome to the faculty. Lucy Musgrave is a London-based urban designer and the founder of Publica, a practice specialising in design of public space and urban spaces. Over her 30-year career, she has played a key advisory role in policy, strategic planning, and the advocacy of design quality. Lucy has contributed to significant projects such as the redesigns of Bond Street, Hanover Square, and Burlington Gardens, enhancing the functionality and beauty of London's urban landscape. She serves as a design advocate for the Mayor of London. In recognition of her services to the built environment, Lucy was awarded an OBE in 2019. Lucy, congratulations, and welcome to the faculty. Tom Stuart-Smith is a British landscape architect renowned for his designs that harmoniously blend naturalism with modernity. After studying zoology at the University of Cambridge, he took a postgraduate degree in landscape design at Manchester University. In 1998, he established his own practice, Tom Stuart-Smith Studio, which has since gained an international reputation for creating gardens that combine naturalistic planting with modern design elements. Notable projects include the master plan for RHS Garden at Bridgewater in Greater Manchester and the garden surrounding the Hepworth Wakefield Gallery in Yorkshire. He has designed 10 award-winning gardens for the Chelsea Flower Show, 8 of which received gold medals, with 3 awarded Best in Show. In recognition of his contribution to landscape architecture, he was awarded an OBE last year. Tom, congratulations. And welcome to the faculty. I will now welcome the Honorary Designers for Industry, the Honorary Royal Designers for Industry 2024. This is awarded annually by the RSA to non-UK designers of all disciplines who have achieved sustained design excellence, work of aesthetic value, and significant benefit to society. Michael Beirut is a New York-based graphic designer, celebrated for his profound impact on contemporary visual communication. A partner at Pentagram since 1990, Michael has crafted some iconic identities for a wide range of clients. Known for his clear, thoughtful, and timeless design approach, he combines insight with deep appreciation for typography and for storytelling. Michael is also a prolific writer, educator, and speaker, serving as a senior critic on graphic design at Yale School of Art, and contributing his expertise to foster the next generation of design talent. Michael, congratulations, and welcome to the faculty. Michael Levine is a Canadian set and costume designer, renowned for his innovative combinations of opera and theatre over the past 4 decades. He was born in Toronto and studied theatre design at the Central School of Art and Design in London. Michael has created acclaimed productions for major institutions, including the Royal Opera House, Opéra Nationale de Paris, and the Metropolitan Opera in New York. His notable work includes the Canadian Opera Company's 2006 production of Wagner's Ring Cycle and the 2022 Bregenz Festival, Madame Butterfly, for which he was named Set Designer of the Year by the prestigious German Opernwelt magazine. Levine's designs are celebrated for their boldness and creativity, often incorporating large-scale elements and innovative use of space to enhance the storytelling. Michael, congratulations. Julia Lohmann is a German-born designer and researcher renowned for her innovative exploration of sustainable materials and the ethical dimension of human interaction with nature. As an associate professor of contemporary design at Aalto University in Finland, she leads the Department of Seaweed, dedicated to investigating seaweed's potential as a sustainable design material. Lohmann's work, which includes large-scale installations and functional objects, emphasizes the importance of ecological responsibility and challenges conventional perceptions of material value. Her contributions have been recognized globally, and she has received support from institutions such as the Esme Fairbairn Foundation, the British Council, and the Wellcome Trust. Julia, congratulations and welcome to the faculty. Clarinda Salandy is a London-based carnival and theatre designer, renowned for her stunning large-scale body sculptures and costumes. Born in Trinidad, she moved to the UK at 16 and studied theatre design at Wimbledon School of Art. In 1989, she co-founded Mahogany Carnival Design with structural engineer Michael Ramdeen to advance costume design techniques and deepen the understanding of carnival arts. Their work has been featured in prestigious events, including the opening and closing ceremonies of the first Afro-Asian Games in India and the Millennium Grand Finale in Singapore. Clary has also contributed to the Notting Hill Carnival for over 3 decades, creating elaborate costumes that blend artistic expression with cultural heritage. As a lecturer and tutor, she has also taught at institutions like Central St Martin's, fostering and inspiring the next generation of designers. Her work emphasizes community engagement and the preservation of carnival traditions, making her a pivotal figure in the UK's cultural landscape. Clary, congratulations and welcome to the faculty. One of the highlights of our calendar is the 3-day RDI summer school held at Dartington in Devon, generously supported by a grant from the Royal Commission for the Exhibition of 1851. The objective of the summer sessions is to create the conditions through which a diverse group of early career designers, engineers, scientists, and environmentalists can meet, learn from each other, and develop meaningful professional and personal relationships in the service of a healthier planet and society. We also invite 10 RDIs and 10 wildcards to take part in the event. We deliver this through an annual residential workshop, which in turn acts as the catalyst for a growing network of talented early career professionals from a wide range of backgrounds. Last year, our theme was optimism, which many participants found in rather short supply. Men, do and make was our theme this year. In a global context, the theme would have been overwhelming, but participants were encouraged to interpret it in any way they chose. Faced with so many issues that need mending, from wars and famine to the climate crisis, we provide the space and the interaction with others to think through micro strategies that could be extrapolated to solve macro problems. To give you a flavour of the impact this has achieved, I would just like to read out a couple of testimonials from the participants. Attending the summer school was transformative. It pushed me to explore outside my comfort zone, reflect on solving the right problems, and share lessons. The diversity of attendees sparked a light in me, and I'm thankful for their openness. I left inspired, ready to bring these insights back to create impact in everything I do. And another. The RDI summer session was truly amazing. The chance to meet such a diverse and brilliant group of people in one place was the highlight of my year. I really appreciated the casual setup. It made it so easy to dive into discussions that were both fascinating and deeply insightful. It wasn't about talking shop. It was about exchanging real-life experiences and perspectives that you don't often get in more formal settings. Believe me, organising such an inspiring event is no mean task. We have a committee of RDIs who put this together, pro bono, throughout the year. They are Chris Wise, Dinah Casson, Tom Lloyd and Kim Collin, all ably assisted by Wilhelmina Bunn, our super competent administrator. My huge thanks to them and the kind generosity of the Royal Commission for the exhibition of 1851 for making it all possible. Thank you. As well as the summer session, I'm delighted and proud to report that as one of its founding bodies, we continue to support the Samisha Black Awards for distinguished services to design education. This year's awards were announced at a ceremony just last week. The recipients were 3 remarkable women. The Samisha Black Award the Samisha Black Medal was given to Dr. Patricia Moore, who stands as a truly extraordinary design educator. She serves as a guiding force for a more humane and livable world, blazing a path for inclusiveness and a true leader in the movement of universal design. She has said that design is the ultimate determination of life's quality. To deliver global dignity by all, by design, is our responsibility, and an ever-evolving challenge for creativity and innovation. Zoe Broach, who has been head of the MA fashion program at the Royal College of Art since 2015, received the Award for Innovation. She encourages her students to transcend the conventional of the graduate collection, questioning broader concerns beyond the catwalk, and pushing them to reappraise their own identity, values, and aesthetic choices. Zoe's innovative approach to fashion and education continues to inspire students and industry with an enduring relevance. Mary Mullin was awarded as Honorary Medal in recognition of her dedication to the awards, serving on the committee for over 30 years and as the chairman for the last 20 years. She was this year succeeded by our very own Malcolm Garrett. Mary, I think, just happens to be in the room with us tonight. Is she here? So, Mary, if you are, can I ask you to stand up so we can all give you a round of applause? Do anybody see Mary? Where is she? Oh. Thank you, Mary. Another of my privileges tonight is to introduce the Master-elect for the faculty, for the RDIs, who will succeed me as master this time next year. I'm delighted to announce that Joanna Gibbons has agreed to take on the role. Jo is a landscape architect whose nearly 40-year practice is dedicated to reconnecting urban spaces with nature at a time when our planet needs it most. Jo's designs foster resilience, support ecological and human health, and unite communities, offering hopeful vision for a more sustainable future. Jo's passion is palpable, especially for her love of trees. She was awarded Royal Designer for Industry for her pioneering and influential work, combining design with activism, education, and professional practice. She is respected for routinely and seamlessly incorporating ecology, biology, urban planning, conservation, community organizing, and the arts, all driven by a keen awareness of climate change, biodiversity loss, and social need. Jo, I'm delighted that you've agreed to take on the role of master and really look forward to working with you in the coming years. It is now my really great pleasure to welcome Tom Stuart-Smith to give this year's address. I had asked Tom to give a joint talk with his wife, Sue, but sadly she has a displaced rib and is too ill to come. So I'd like to give a brief introduction to her and her in her absence, because her work is so amazing. Although she is married to Tom and is clearly an accomplished gardener, she is also a psychotherapist and a psychiatrist. She is the author of The Well-Gardened Mind, listed as the gardening book of the year and the most original gardening book ever by the Sunday Times. I have read lots of books about gardening, but believe me, hers is by far the most interesting and insightful that I've ever read. So Tom, it is my pleasure to welcome you to give tonight's address.
Yeah, well done. Can you pick up this here? Is that right?
Great.
Well done. Thanks.
Well, I'm sorry you're only getting half an act this evening. Although quite how both of us were going to stand on this stage together, I don't quite know. I wanted to give a talk about, we were going to give a talk about our home, because it's our shared project in a way. And it's going to be a talk about place, people, and perhaps a tiny bit, I mean, I have to confess, a tiny bit about privilege. Not necessarily a good thing, but I have to own up to the fact that this is where I was born. It's where I still live, more or less. In fact, you could say my life has been summarized by a 150-yard migration from the house on the right to the house on the left. I was one of 6 children. I had to find a niche, and I found a niche quite young when I was in my teens, in the woods, planting trees, and in the garden, making gardens. I never really knew it was something that I could do as a profession, and it was really only in my 20s I did as somebody said, as you said, I did a science degree at Cambridge, and then all my friends went off into different glamorous worlds, and I went off and did a landscape architecture degree. And I sort of disappeared off the scene for quite some time, in a way, I think, for as far as they were concerned. They thought, what a strange thing to be doing. I sort of feel I've got my revenge now, because they're all bored and retired. Well, some of them are. And I feel I'm just sort of getting into my stride, age 65. But this is an aerial photograph taken from somebody flying over our house just about 2 years after we moved in. We lived in that black barn there. And at that point, we owned up to where the little fence is. But over time, we were able to buy some land and made a much bigger garden. And this is a photograph of maybe 15 years ago. A lot of our early gardening activities was actually about making a place around what was quite a windswept, hilly, sort of barren place. I mean, beautiful in its own way, but not a place to bring up children. We had 3 children. You could say, well, is that really a place for children to grow up in? I mean, in a way, yes, it was, because it was a wonderful sort of exploratory maze of plants growing all over the place. And as time went on, the garden got bigger, and it got rather wilder, and I was experimenting with new ways of gardening. For instance, this is a prairie grown of almost entirely American plants, seeded directly onto the ground. And I've been very interested in watching how vegetation changes over time, and a lot of my work has been increasingly about almost gardens as ecosystems and gardens as vegetation and how you manage that. But about 10 years ago, my son, who was then an architecture student, said to me, you know, it's very curious that you're working from a design studio in London. At that stage, I had about 15 people working for me. And you don't really make the connection between home and work at all. And he was citing these people like Peter Zumthor, Renzo Piano, who had these beautiful practices near their home where they lived. And there seemed to be a much more sort of continuous sort of connection between home life and work life. And for me, I'd always had everything rather separate. I was perhaps almost rather embarrassed by my early success at things like the Chelsea Flower Show, which is, after all, slightly embarrassing. And home life was something that I sort of put a ring around. I didn't really want too much publicity about it or anything like that. But our children were growing up and leaving home, and it seemed ridiculous to think what we would do managing this great big garden we'd made. It was also then that Sue, who had been a consultant psychiatrist in the NHS for 25 years, finally got exhausted by the cuts under the last government and decided to resign. And she ended up spending 5 years researching this book and then writing this book called The Well-Gardened Mind, which you referred to, which was a kind of transformational process in our life and in our marriage, really, because the garden suddenly became shared territory. It had always been sort of rather my thing, as it were. And she was obviously looking at gardens from a slightly different perspective, and a very interesting perspective, a cultural perspective, but also how gardens had this extraordinary capacity to change people's lives. And she traveled all around the world, and some of the most remarkable things that she discovered were actually in prisons, in hospitals, in drug rehabilitation centers. So just, I mean, I can't speak for her, but just a couple of things that just sort of make you sit up and think. That in Rikers Island, which is now closed, the famous jail in New York, people who went on the horticultural therapy program had a reoffending rate of 20%, whereas the standard reoffending rate for people who go to Rikers was over 80%. So this was participation in a horticultural program. Then you see that the average school child in England has less access to the outside space than a maximum security prisoner in the UK. So you're confronted by these appalling statistics about how little access we have to nature. And we lived in this kind of glorious place. This is a drawing I made of it, just to sort of think about home and where we lived. And we lived in all this space, and yet we had 400,000 people living within 10 miles of us, because we live, if you form an equilateral triangle out of St Albans, Hemel Hempstead, and Watford, we live in the middle. We're really a sort of motorway service station on the junction of the M1 and the M25. And so we started thinking about if I was going to relocate my business to home, we should do something more than that. And we rather naively thought that the local authority would be very welcoming to the idea that we could build some wonderful horticultural centre for people in the middle of the green belt, and I could build my studio there as well. And of course, they immediately turned us down and said this was completely inappropriate. But they did say, generously, and I think probably rightly, that if we put the studio in some old building somewhere, then they might give us permission for what they called a horticultural resource centre. So we actually got permission to do this, and we started making the garden before we started building the building, which I think is always a very good way to go about things. And at about the same time, we came across this extraordinary organization which was on our doorstep 5 miles away, called Sunnyside Rural Trust, which is an organization that employs young adults and older people with learning difficulties. So mainly adults with autism and Asperger's. So they come with a personal budget from the local authority, well, from the county authority. But they can theoretically spend that, as I understand it, on social evenings down playing bingo, or they can give it to an organization like Sunnyside, who then employs them and gives them a work and gives them a life. So they employ 180 people, and mainly in looking after gardens, growing plants. They, for instance, have 300 battery chickens, which they release from an otherwise certain death, and look after them and sell their eggs in the local towns. We started making this garden actually at the beginning of the pandemic, and we realized that actually what was needed there was a garden for local people, because we all thought we were going to starve, and we also all wanted somewhere to be outside to communicate. So we started making really like little allotments so that all the people around us could have somewhere to meet and somewhere to grow vegetables. And even in the first year, this is what happened. We did the no-dig method, as it's called. So instead of using any herbicide, we just put cardboard and then this much compost, which we got from a local stable, on the ground, and then planted directly into that. And this is what happened. About maybe a year after that, my time scale gets a bit muddled. I went to visit Sunnyside's main nursery in Hemel Hempstead, and where they had inherited the local authorities' growing facilities. They had all these amazing glass houses, and they were full of nothing but red begonias. They had 90,000 begonias in there. And I have to admit, I was completely appalled. I said, what on earth are you doing growing this stuff? And what it was that they had a contract with Dacorum Borough Council to grow their bedding plants every year. And so these plants would arrive as cells from a Dutch nursery. They would grow them on for 2 months, and then they would be shipped out. So these amazing glass houses were being used for 2 months a year, and then they were empty. And I said, what you've got to do is grow perennial plants, that can be there the whole year, and set up a business whereby you make a local nursery. And we amazingly had the opportunity to sort of kickstart that, because I did a garden for the Royal Horticultural Society at the Hampton Court Flower Show. And I said, well, I'll do it, but I want Sunnyside, who've never really grown a perennial before, to grow all the plants. And they grew 7,000 plants, and this is the little nursery we built. And fortunately, I found this amazing grower who was just closing his own nursery to help them with the process. And this was just a little snapshot of the garden we made, a week-long garden at the Hampton Court Flower Show. So then we once the pandemic was over, we got down to building, and we built this beautiful barn. My son was my architect, keep it in the family. And that has been a most amazing experience. I mean, gosh, if ever you can get through an 18-month building process with a close relative and come out the other end closer than you went in, then that's a great thing. And we had a lot of thought about what kind of garden it should be. And I had this initial very, very bad idea that every one of my staff, who I wanted to learn more about plants, because they're all in their 20s and 30s living in London, they don't have a garden. And part of the point of going out to the country was that I wanted to get them all gardening. And so initially, the idea was I was going to give them all a budget, and they were going to have a plot and look after it. And the curious thing was that they basically all ordered the same plants, from which they'd seen on magazines and stuff. And when the plants arrived pretty much on the first day of the pandemic, and I had to line them all out, I thought, God, this isn't really going to work. And what happens if, Jeff leaves he's fed up with me after a year. I'm going to end up looking after his, purple achilleas and toffee-coloured echinaceas or whatever. And it's all going to be a bit of a disaster. So for us, in that respect, the dreadful pandemic came at quite a good moment, because we could stop and think about actually what could we do, what could we make of this garden? And we came up with this idea of a plant library. So effectively, a library of books, but instead of books, plants. So a filing system, but a beautiful filing system, not all works by A.S. Byatt all on a shelf together, but dotted about, but you can recognize them. Like in the same way in this photograph, those tall things are called foxtail lilies. And there are probably 10 different varieties in the garden, but they're quite easy to see. And you have a QR code on the corner of each bed, which you put your phone on, and it tells you where they are, and you can go around. So it's quite a great learning experience. And now we're just about to expand it, because I had to buy the land off my sister, and she's very generously said I could have a little bit more. We now have about 2,000 different varieties of herbaceous plant and sub-shrub, which are sort of small shrubs, and about 500 varieties of bulb. So is it a complete, and for somebody like me who's a total plantaholic, it's like a sort of fantastic sweet shop. But the thing that's become as an extraordinary revelation to us, this is the building, which is very, yes, a little diversion here. It's a very, I would say, ecologically constructed building. All the cladding is oak from trees less than a couple of 100 yards away, which we chopped down and split by hand. The floor is made of unfired clay, dug out of a hole about 4 miles away and sealed just with linseed oil, so zero carbon. I mean, unless there's some carbon in linseed oil, I suppose. The walls are made out of hemp, and it's a beautiful building to be in. And the garden is largely maintained by a group of volunteers. And that is something that's built up over several years, since the pandemic. We now find it difficult to cope with the numbers of volunteers, but it's become this sort of wonderful group of people who meet every Friday and look after the garden. But perhaps the main objective of the whole project is that we have a lot of school visits. And we also have a lot of events for local schools, particularly those with disabilities. So we have a local Breakspear school, which is a local disability school, who come once every week. This is another local school, and they come. And we originally thought that we were going to have somebody who was giving them sort of close instruction. But actually, most of the time, they don't need it. We realize that the need just to be in green, open space and to be able to walk around this sort of rather extraordinary, fantastic collection of plants, looking at the beauty of it, maybe picking some flowers, maybe drawing them, maybe making one week, a couple of weeks ago, kids were making little models of some of the insects out of clay that they found in the garden. But the thing that is so extraordinary to me is the way that children, when they come into this space, after an initial sort of rather frenzied, excited arrival, the sense of novelty of it all, within about 20 minutes, they calm down, they quieten down, they become more studious. And then when they come back week after week, they sort of say, well, we know this place, it's our space. So it's become a sort of wonderfully exciting thing for us. Here are some of the kids in the garden. And this is what we're sort of aiming for, I suppose, in a way, is for children to be empowered with nature, for children to have access to something which they simply don't have access to in their everyday life. And the project we're now starting on is the Sunnyside project, Mark II, which is that we've managed to raise money to build a nursery around the side of the project. It has to be a fairly secure space with limited access to it. But the idea is that they will propagate plants from this plant collection we've created and then sell them back to the public. In some cases, I think they'll be selling them back to us because they're plants that we can't find commercially. Maybe Brexit has done them a favor because plants are so bloody difficult to get from Europe nowadays that it makes it much easier if you can actually find them from UK nurseries. And curiously, although we're a great nation of plant lovers, the British nursery trade is not as up to the speed as it might be, particularly when it comes to producing things in volume. So these are two lovely Sunnyside apprentices with their supervisor. I mean, okay, not full of plants because it's we only finished it in a few weeks ago. But I'm very excited to think that this can be a place of sort of social and botanical regeneration. And this is us all together, some of the Sunnyside volunteers. This is the amazing CEO of Sunnyside, Keely Siddiqui Charlik. And that's our head gardener on the right, Millie Suter. And that is Sue, who you're missing this evening, I'm afraid to say, who would have said this so much more eloquently than me. And this is what the plan looks like. You see, it's not a sort of pastoral idyll. It's not full of serpentine walks. It's a tedious grid. And in a way, that gives me a wonderful satisfaction. It sort of combines the nerd and the poet in a way. That this is this filing system, and if you look at it from the air, it's one plot, 1 square meter for most plants. The more vigorous ones down the bottom get a little bit more. But generally, it's 1 square meter for a plant, and there might be a bulb in there too. And this is what the planting plan looks like. It's just this huge mass of data. I love it. And yet, when you're in it, there is something poetic about it and something immersive about it. And that actually has come as a bit of a surprise to me, that when you put 1,500 different plants in a space, you'd expect it to be visually chaotic, but it's not. It's a space that you can get lost in, and it's just got so much detail that you do become lost. This is a photograph taken very recently in the first frost. And that is a kind of recapitulation of the first photograph that I showed you, when we had those empty fields and that barn looking rather sort of bare. When we moved there was one 50-acre field of wheat, where in the mid-19th century there had been 16 fields. So there'd been this terrible, terrible thinning out over 150 years. And I hope that what we've been able to do is to sort of bring back some of that intensity and to make a place. So many of these places in the country and particularly in the green belt have become sort of vacuous and socially empty. And what we're trying to do is to enliven this place and make it a place where people can come. And I do feel that the green belt in the future should not be a place where we're farming useless crops on grade 3 agricultural land. It should be a public resource for people, and we're trying to do our bit to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom, for a hugely thought-provoking and engaging address. Thank you, too, to RDI Master Charlie Payton. And congratulations again to the new royal designers joining our community. Everyone is now invited to move down to the Benjamin Franklin room for drinks. Please exit via the door to my left and take the staircase down to the ground floor. All except for the new royal designers, please, if you could remain behind to assemble for a group photograph, and then you'll be given a drink. Thank you again to everyone here in the room and also to everybody online for joining us for such a spectacular occasion, celebrating the true power of design. Thank you and good night.